The member for Hasluck.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I also rise to offer my condolences on the death of James Oswald Jimmy Little. I had the incredible privilege of knowing Jimmy well, and in particular in his latter stage of the work that he was doing around developing an awareness of the impact of renal disease and the way in which sometimes we neglect what it means to lose kidneys or the functions of kidneys, and then the imposition of being married to a machine that cleanses your blood. I met Jimmy many years ago through a mutual friend, May O'Brien, who, when we went to a conference, Jimmy was performing. And I'd always loved as a child the Royal Telephone, and she yelled out, he asked for any requests and she yelled out Royal Telephone. And she said to me, come and meet him. Come and meet Jimmy. He's an incredible man. He has done so much, very quietly and in his own way, to bring the issues of his people and our people to the fore of the public view. And so I did. I met him, and in a sense, when you meet somebody who you have admiration for, but have respect for, you tend to follow their career after that. And it was tremendous, because I met with him several times. But the best meeting I ever had was with Jimmy was when Bud Bidstrap, who was a drummer in a band who got to know Jimmy over those years, invited me to go and meet with Jimmy at his home when he was living in Sydney to talk about the establishment of the foundation and the work that Jimmy hoped to achieve. And it was an incredible 2.5 hours of sitting with somebody who was so peaceful, so calm, so measured in what he had to say, but was extraordinary in the vision that he had for the work and the capability and the capacity that he could bring to the foundation by two things. One was to lend his name to the foundation, but secondly, his commitment to go out, use both his music and his knowledge of his own experience to share with others, to hopefully make a difference in the way that people would view renal disease. And of course, after that, they were highly successful in attracting funding to commence the program around in the Northern Territory. What was sad is that he died on the 2nd of April at his home in Dubbo, aged 75 years. I know he would have been with family, and I know that's something that he really appreciated. And over that time that I knew him personally, there were elements that came to the fore about the quality of Jimmy. But the other night I was asked to represent the Leader of the Opposition at it wasn't the other night, sorry, it was a daytime commemoration service to Jimmy. And I heard the Premier of the state deliver a very powerful speech about the quality of the individual, the quality of the work that he undertook, but the way in which he reached out beyond his Aboriginality, that he reached into a society and touched people with his vision, with his song, but also with him as the person. And people who knew him loved him dearly. But I think more importantly, what was recognised in all of this was the strength of his family, the support that he received from 2004 onwards when he had his first transplant. And Jimmy had a quiet sense of humour, but he recounted the days when he first started touring, and when he would go into hotels to perform, he was often told to go through the back door of the hotel, which was a black door, where blacks only could go. And he said that on occasions, the people who were performing with him would say, if Jimmy cannot come through the front door of the hotel, then we're not performing at this hotel, and they'd pack up and leave and perform elsewhere. Shame. His friendship with so many people in the industry was remarkable. And it was fascinating when Kylie Minogue performed a song with him, that her parents came down not to see Kylie perform with Jimmy, but to see Jimmy perform and meet Jimmy. Such was the gentleness of the man and the admiration that Australians had for him. James Oswald Jimmy Little was an Australian Aboriginal musician, actor and teacher from the Yorta Yorta people and was raised on the Cumragunja mission in New South Wales. And then he died at his home in Dubbo, aged 75 years. And what an incredible, rich 75 years it was for him, and particularly in 1958, when he started to play much more openly and perform across the spectrum of music that was available at the time. He was certainly influenced by Nat King Cole and others of that period and some of the gospel music. But at no stage did he pigeonhole himself into a particular genre, although country western music was also a favourite of his, and I have heard him play a range of music which demonstrated his capacity to walk across those genres of music and still hold an audience and hold them well. I heard the story of how he met Marjorie Rose Peters, a fellow singer, and just the excitement, and it was described as he looked across the room, saw an incredible smile from his future wife, and then sometime later they connected again and became a couple. They married, and they had their one child, Frances Clare Peters Little, who was a documentary filmmaker, a writer and a historian, but she also sang and said, "I can't sing," but when she sang one of Jimmy's songs at the concert that night, it was an incredible voice, and I thought, if she can't sing, then there's hope for me in terms of karaoke, but she was just beautiful in the way she encapsulated it. I think the other thing that Jimmy did was he became an Aboriginal star, but he always said, "I am Australian. I value my heritage, I value the fact that I'm a Yorta Yorta man, but I also value the fact that I am part of, as Christine Anu would say, my island home." We had an influence on Australia in a period when people's views about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were very strong. But he was very gentle and quiet, and as a passive person, brought home to people the incredible capability and talent that he as an Aboriginal man had. And in his influence in the music industry, it was fascinating listening to Cole Joy recount his times of singing with Jimmy Little. And then Judy Stone, who also performed, talk about being encouraged by him and Cole to do her first song and send it off to Festival Records. So in a sense, he taught and reached out to those who he saw with the ability to sing and to provide music that would be part of, in a sense, to me, songwriters sing the history of a country or tell a story of set of circumstances. And that's what he continually did. And I was pleased that he won the ARIA Hall of Fame and then the award for the Best Adult Contemporary Album, because each of those two awards recognise his influence, but in particular what he had contributed to Australian music industry. What was particularly rewarding from my perspective, and I know many Australians, was on Australia Day on the 26th of January 2004. He was made an Officer of the Order of Australia with the citation for service to the entertainment industry as a singer, a recording artist and a songwriter, and to the community through reconciliation and as an ambassador for Indigenous culture. It was interesting listening to the Minister, Peter Garrett, talk about his movie endeavours. He enjoyed those. Wasn't somebody that hit the scene for a long time, but his contribution in those was great. But I think the other attribute that was important is he worked at the Aura Centre in Redfern and certainly imparted knowledge and skills to aspiring young Aboriginal people who were looking at going into the arts. And I know of some individuals personally who were encouraged to think beyond where they were at and to pursue a career in music. He was also a guest lecturer at the University of Sydney's Koori Centre. And in 1990, Jimmy was diagnosed with kidney disease. And at the time he said, unfortunately, I didn't get checkups often enough or soon enough to realise that the possibility that my kidneys could fail. And in a sense, his comments epitomise most Aboriginal people who experience renal disease and who, because they ignored the signs and symptoms and didn't look after themselves, end up with kidney disease. And with the advent of transplants, Jimmy in 2004 had a kidney transplant, and that gave him a new lease of life and certainly drove his desire to continue with his music, to perform, to travel. I had the incredible privilege at that concert to see the Jimmy Little Trio perform with two or three of the artists, but in particular with a family member when they sang one of his songs. And let me tell you, those three gentlemen, even though age has caught up with them, still showed the panache and sparkle playing their guitars and playing the drum. They were tremendous, and they certainly got a tremendous recognition. But as a result of immunosuppressants, he developed type 2 diabetes, and he also developed a heart condition. But it was after his transplant he established the Jimmy Little Foundation to promote Indigenous health and diet. And if you look at the work that he has achieved in bringing a message to Aboriginal communities and to young people through both his music, his knowledge and his experience, he has certainly developed an awareness of renal disease, the need to look after your body, and certainly the signs and symptoms that you need to consider in order to have a better pathway than he did. In 2005, Jimmy told Peter Thompson on ABC TV program Talking Heads how he would like to be remembered, and I think this epitomises Jimmy Little, the person. I want people to remember me as a nice person who was fair-minded and had a bit of talent that was put to good use. And I think that any of us that are aware of his contribution to the industry would certainly agree that his contribution over a long period of time is significant to the way in which the genres of music became known and for what he was known, and certainly his time on television. He was often on television shows of those era. If you are of my ilk, you'd remember Bandstand and some of the other Saturday shows. He was a regular on those, and in his presentation brought home very strongly to all Australians that he was a talented musician. I certainly want to acknowledge the concert of Australian performers who paid their own tribute to Uncle Jimmy, and the tribute was through song and personal reflections on how Jimmy Little impacted on them personally and professionally. And Deputy Speaker, with your indulgence, I'd like to table that list for inclusion in my speech without me going through them.
Is there an objection to the incorporation? No.
Thank you very much. And certainly, can I finish by saying we have lost an incredible musician, but a great Australian, and certainly an Aboriginal leader who showed that you can achieve things doing what you have to do quietly, under the radar, but powerfully through the voice, through song, and through your actions. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank the member.